Well, the unfortunate news is this software update did not solve the problem at all, and that's disappointing. But we are live, and I'm pleased to invite back to the show. Sorry, John, boy, this problem is just so persistent. It's crazy.
Josh. I know Josh.
Give me just a second, and we will be on here. Doing everything I can to try to resolve the issue, but it's, wow, we've got no cameras. So we're going to be talking about the recent Pennsylvania grand jury and the report that was issued on the Archdiocese of Pennsylvania. My guest today, of course, is Fireman John from the Traffick Report Show. Doing everything I can to try to resolve the issue, but get the persistent bug resolved. This is not an outside attack. So we're going to be talking a software bug recently identified by the manufacturer of the software, but yet to be resolved. And Pennsylvania. My guest today, now we've got sound going from everywhere. I was unplugged from the audio. So we're in the midst of an official disaster from a technical standpoint. Give me just a moment. Okay. All right.
That's better. Now I don't hear everything repeating. So that's
exactly. So we're getting there. We're getting there, John. Okay. Fireman John, welcome to the show. Sorry for that rough start. Technology, man.
You know, compared to running into burning buildings, Jason, it wasn't so bad. You know?
Right. And people should know this is not just a internet nickname. Fireman John is a veteran. What fire department were you in, John?
I worked several places, but I worked for the longest at the City of Stuart Fire Rescue Department in Stuart, Florida.
And if I'm not mistaken, you were among the fire crews that actually traveled to New York City on September 11th in 2001.
Well, no, actually we didn't. We were ready to, but they never. They had so much help that they never called us. But we did. Our union had some of the guys from FDNY down to our area to kind of for R&R. So yeah, I got to know a lot of those guys and guys like Rudy Dent. I don't know if you know Rudy, but he's been real active in the 9/11 Truth movement with architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. Eric Lawyer, you know, a lot of those guys. Rudy was on duty that day. Watched Building 7 go down, and I mean, they knew.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, that's a conversation for us to have in a little bit more than a week's time, perhaps, some of the anomalous information related to 9/11. But of course, as a firefighter in Stuart, you dedicated significant portions of your life to saving people, saving children, risking your own safety to enter burning buildings and to help people. And now you've dedicated your time. You've created a YouTube channel called the Traffick Report Show. And if people have not yet subscribed to the Traffic Report Show, you can find it right here on YouTube. I have included the direct link to it in the show notes and the description box. We can help John and Pizzagate. Howie, you've got a couple of recurring collaborators, right?
Yes. And
Kelly is on there with you?
Our newest, we stole one of your listeners and fans, Kelly Fustos.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, she's a research tornado.
Yeah, Kelly's great. And you guys are doing great work on there. Howie goes around challenging some of the most high-profile individuals who are suspected of wrongdoing. Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, and of course we've all heard recently about the death of Jenny Moore, who was investigating a victim who alleged that Bill Clinton had raped him at a young age. And that brings us to our discussion today. I think most people have heard that a grand jury had been impaneled in Pennsylvania and investigated what this report basically describes as the biggest, what does it say exactly? It says that this is, we've never seen child sex abuse on this scale.
No. And Jason, if you, and that's what we're doing, and I just thank you. I mean, you've always helped us get out whatever, message, and having survivors on our pro. That was primarily what the Traffick Report was founded for, was a platform for survivors of child sexual abuse. It kind of grew into, a corruption history, because it's, and we've had this discussion. I mean, one can't exist without the other. It's all a big interlocking spider web as far as our intelligence agencies. And I mean, I'm not going to give everybody a history lesson, but I know that the Jesuits' involvement in the intelligence services and the City of London, MI6, yeah, I mean, pedophile blackmail has been around for a long time, and the cornerstone is the Vatican and the Jesuits. And we're seeing through this report and a lot of other sources that the wheels are coming off their little wagon there, and it's about time. And this report is a huge bomb. And let me just say, I've been researching this type of thing for probably 10 years. I'd say 50,000 hours worth of research in child trafficking and the infrastructure of it. And just this report, if you take it and look at it, and it just dawned on me, and I had to stop reading it, because I couldn't sit in a chair and I couldn't live with the level of anger that was being produced by reading this, because it was dawning on me, and I've been doing this for a while, that if you take this report, it's not theory, it's not conjecture, this is evidence, okay?
Right.
And a reasonable person, because I know I was a Catholic, if one thing the Catholics do is follow chain of command, okay? Mm-hmm. Always. They're not freelancers. So you can take this evidence here, and that's what I've been doing in the past few days, and as you branch it out into the 50 states, into hundreds, everywhere there's a Catholic church, everywhere there is a diocese or an archdiocese, and yeah, you want to talk about that now, Jason? What the hell is it?
Yeah, I was going to pause you, John, because of the things that I know and have been educated in, religion is an area that I am sort of lacking a lot of knowledge. I don't have much exposure to the Catholic Church, and even my own religion of Judaism hasn't been a huge part of my life. So is it fair to say that the Jesuits, can we impugn an entire sect of a religion and say the Jesuits are responsible for this? Surely that can't be correct.
Well, all I can use is their historical fact, and ask Field McConnell.
Right.
That's where, and Field has done more research than I have, and I would, and I don't think it's every Jesuit, but the hierarchy of the Jesuits and their top management have been doing some very screwed up things, over world history, so yeah, I think you can lay it at their door.
Wow.
Wow. And of course, like everything else, we talk about our intelligence agencies. They're good people that work there. I was an altar boy. Our Monsignor and our diocese was a saint. That little Italian guy, I don't think, and I have to do it in retrospect, but I don't think his mind even could have conceived harming a child. And we were little bastards. we and this guy took us to Coney Island, and bought us Italian sausage sandwiches, and just, I mean, we were little, we were drinking the wine. I mean, just, all the stories you hear. And thank God for me, I wasn't, molested by a Catholic priest. That it happened to me by somebody else.
I didn't realize that you were a victim.
Yeah. And that was, that was something that I've dealt with over, many years with a lot of help. And it was, I really I shouldn't minimize it, but when I start dealing with the people that we've been dealing with and the survivors of the church, and this happened to me one time, and yeah, it shouldn't happen at all. But
how old were you?
Huh?
How old were you when that happened, John?
15.
Wow.
And
how old was your attacker?
50s, and he would bring all these young kids over, and we thought he was really cool because everybody could drink alcohol. And that's now I know that's a red flag at 15.
Right.
That's not something you think about, but so I do understand, being a survivor, and that helps me, and that's probably why I'm doing what I'm doing. One of the reasons.
For sure.
I think I would have taken this up anyway, because through my 9/11 research, when you find out what's happening to children in this country, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it happened to you or not. You're gonna take that up.
But I think people can relate to your motivations much more now, and thank you for being so open and sharing that. It's obviously got to be an extremely difficult thing for you to think about and overcome. So, you raise an interesting, and I mean, this is really the most upsetting aspect of this. Obviously, any form of child abuse is terrible, but everyone, families go to a church or a place of worship because it's, the values, and they trust the priest. The reason we have altar boys and church trips and synagogue groups and all these kinds of things is because a family entrusts these men of religion, or women, depending on their religion. We trust them and trust them with our children. To violate that trust in this way goes so deeply to the heart of so many things. The innocence of children, the faith. I mean, this has got to shake people to their very core when they feel that they can't trust someone in the church. That is really mind-bending for many.
Well, they need to be shaken to the core, and not just the churchgoers. I mean, everybody in this country needs their core shaken, because it's all part of the big picture. I mean, when you see our country and the corruption in our institutions, and how the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, police department, fire department, the Explorer programs. I mean, and this report is starting, and it is an explanation why we're surrounded by these pedophiles.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church has been an engine, and we know from that there's been too little research done, but we know pretty much that people that are raped as children or abused or whatever, half of them, about half, become survivors and try to help people, and a big percentage of them become abusers and predators. Right. So when you look at this, and this report is just beginning to be documentation of it, that we're talking decades of abuse. We're talking probably millions worldwide, many million children that have been taken into this meat grinder, and half of them come out intact. Well, and they're not really intact, because it's a struggle every day of their lives to overcome the experience. But half of them don't go down that road. They start abusing kids.
Yeah.
So this is, if you can get the enormity of this, and you just can't. Like I said, and I've been doing this for a long time, I still can't wrap my head around the size of this criminal, and what it is a criminal conspiracy, because we can see in the report, and the Attorney General was on today saying, yes, the Vatican knew. There's a playbook, Jason, and I think you have it there. There was 7 strategies that all these 6 dioceses used, not to stop child abuse, not to rectify the problem, but to hide it, to move the priests around to people that didn't know who they are. And the number one thing was that it didn't get reported to law enforcement. I mean, that was...
And let's talk about that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, John, but let me actually read to people from this playbook here. You've sent it to me, and it says, first, they want to make sure to use euphemisms rather than real words to describe sexual assaults in diocese documents. Never say rape, say inappropriate contact or boundary issues. Second, don't conduct genuine investigations with properly trained personnel. Instead, assign fellow clergy members to ask inadequate questions and then make credibility determinations about the colleagues with whom they live and work. Third, for an appearance of integrity, send priests for evaluation at church-run psychiatric treatment centers and allow these experts to diagnose whether the priest was a pedophile based largely on the priest's self-reports, and regardless of whether the priest had actually engaged in sexual contact with a child. Fourth, when a priest does have to be removed, don't say why. Tell his parishioners that he's on sick leave or suffering from nervous exhaustion, or say nothing at all. Fifth, even if a priest is raping children, keep providing him housing and living expenses, although he may be using these resources to facilitate more sexual assaults.
Are you getting angry yet?
I mean, I'm shocked by this, John, because as terrible as child sex abuse is, the systemic support and enabling of it here, I mean, one question I was going to ask you that this sort of answers was, do we know if this is a matter of priests preying on children or child predators posing as priests to get into this system? And I think that this document, where did we get this document? This is from the grand jury report.
That's the grand jury impaneled 2 years ago by the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania. And Josh, God bless him, was on the Today program and was asked, did the Vatican know about this? Or did the Pope know about this?
Josh is the Attorney General in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Josh Shapiro. What he said was he can't speak for this current Pope because this particular document has been around, for a while. It might predate this Pope, this playbook. But what he did say is the Vatican knew about it. Unequivocal, Jason. And I'll tell you something, and I can say this because I told you I'm a recovering Catholic.
Right.
He knew, because if there's one thing about the Catholics, they follow chain of command. Okay. It's set up like a military organization.
Yes, particularly in the structure of the church, right?
Yeah, and that's what these dioceses are. And an archdiocese is just a large one. It's like there's 6 of these, and they're called dioceses, and the plural of diocese is diocese. It's, believe it or not. So these were smaller, and it's just groups of churches, and they have a general, a Monsignor. It's chain of command. It's military. And where does that come from, Jason? The Jesuits. Okay.
Wow.
They were a military order. Okay.
Wow.
So and a big one like Chicago is an archdiocese, and that may have a cardinal instead of a Monsignor. So
they're more like arch criminals, it seems, John.
Yeah.
It's quite shocking, really. And so let me read actually another excerpt here. I'm going back to the report for a moment. This is the actual PDF of the report, and I'll post a link to that. But this is saying that these documents contain credible allegations against over 300 predator priests and over 1,000 child victims were identifiable from the church's own records. And the authors of this report believe that the real number of children whose records were lost or who were afraid to even come forward is in the thousands. So that's quite shocking.
And I'll speak right to that right now, because I have obviously put some time into reading this, and that statement is kind of getting to the truth of the matter. But you can take the report itself. One priest, because they do case studies in there, and they've tried to compile numbers of victims for every one of those 300. But they take like 3 or 4 for each diocese, and they do like a case study presentation at the beginning of the report for that diocese. One priest, okay, 41 victims, okay?
Wow.
Do the math, Jason. Do the math.
Have any of these guys ever gone to jail, John?
No.
Not a single one. That's amazing.
There are a couple of cases, and he's brought this up, and this is something that really needs the attention of our Justice Department, like right now. Because depending on the state, the statute of limitation issues have prevented them filing cases on these criminals. They're still alive.
Why is there a statute of limitations on rape?
You would think. But the attorney, apparently there is, because the Attorney General himself, when asked that question, that's what they're saying. And I know I was familiar with Maryland, and there are statutes of limitations on how long you can sue them. But all I can speak to is Maryland, and we're under the in the process of determining it criminally in all the states. But there is no statute of limitations in Maryland on child rape. Okay. Now here's what happened in Maryland. You're familiar with The Keepers, the documentary about the Diocese of Baltimore?
No.
Well, it's on Netflix. Must-watch TV. They murdered a nun that was going to expose them back like in the 70s. The
priests murdered a nun?
Yes. Yeah. And her friend. It's all on that documentary. It's like 6-7 hour documentary. But what they did, what the diocese did in Baltimore, was they outweighed the statute of limitations. So the criminal, or not the criminal, but the civil, they had no civil remedy. So then they send a list of 180 priests. And this is the diocese. There's a list, Jason. I've seen it. I've read it.
Right.
These guys did this. You can't sue them, but they did it. And so they give that to the district attorney. And the district attorney does nothing. And there is no criminal statute of limitations. So you tell me what's going on there. And knowing that, and knowing what the Attorney General is saying in Pennsylvania, this is a job for the Justice Department. Okay.
Well, first we got to rout out all the corruption in the Justice Department, because it seems like they're not prosecuting anything.
Yeah, but they're running. They ran RICO cases on the mafia. This is a RICO case. Not only is it a RICO case, it's a criminal conspiracy of. And I'll say this to you, Jason. And once you read this, and it'll take a while for it to sink into you. You look at the Kennedy assassination, 9/11, the Iraq War, all those government conspiracies. Okay, this dwarfs them all.
The scope of people involved is certainly massive.
And the intent, okay? Because, the CIA does this or that. They subverted the Iran. They got, they take out, who they want. They put them in. This conspiracy.
Yeah, who does it benefit? What's the purpose?
Yeah. Cui bono, exactly. You know who it benefits? The richest church in the world. The Vatican power structure.
How do they benefit from it?
They control their victims, and I think it's also part. We're finding out that there ritual abuse involved with these sects.
Let me do this, John. Let me carry on with this playbook here, and then I have another question I want to ask you about. So we were up to 5th?
7, yeah. Yeah,
Fifth?
we're
Oh, sorry, sixth. Yes.
sixth.
If a predator's conduct becomes known to the community, don't remove him from the priesthood to ensure that no more children will be victimized. Instead, transfer him to a new location where no one will know he's a child abuser. That right there is shocking. They want to give him new fertile ground to operate on. That's crazy. And then the final bit of advice that they give is, above all, don't tell the police. Child sexual abuse, even short of actual penetration, is and has for all relevant times been a crime. But don't treat it that way. Handle it like a personnel matter in-house. John, this is shocking. This came from an actual document from the diocese.
Absolutely.
Wow.
You know, and I think it was more than one, because I don't think they didn't, in the report, they didn't really pin it on one diocese. And you know, and what I know about the Catholic Church, they follow chain of command. There's not, the Vatican knows exactly what's going on in every diocese. You know, that's what they're about. They're a military organization. They're structured like a military organization and a criminal organization. And another one that comes to mind is the mafia. Okay, because what they have done here, it dwarfs it all, Jason. And it's not directed at, you know, smuggling heroin or, you know, taking down a country or a government, or this worldwide, not just in the United States, is directed at children, period. Okay. And yeah, who benefits? What a great control system to, you know, control everybody that's under their thumb. And we're talking billions of people.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Now, the thing is, you know, the craziest aspect of it is, and the report even starts by saying, hey, we've heard this before. I mean, it's obviously, I'm thinking of Spotlight, the film about the Boston Globe, doing a story on the Catholic Church there in Massachusetts, and it's basically everything that you're describing here. I recall a scene in which, I forget who the actor was, but I think it's, what's his name? The guy who plays the Hulk, Mark, I forget his name, but he discovers a book that's telling him where these priests have been moved to, and he puts it together in his head that they're just moving these guys to other cities so people don't know. And they say he's on sick leave, and he says, look, at all these guys are on sick leave, and they have witnesses coming forward saying they were raped by the priests. What do we think is going to, can they do anything, John? Will they prosecute these guys finally?
They're going to have to. And what I would say to the Attorney General in Pennsylvania, if the Pennsylvania state law is inadequate, we need to change it, like, immediately. And I would say that to all 50 states. But I believe that there are parts, and good parts, of our system that still works. One of them is the parts of the Justice Department, okay? And they can take this case not only from a civil rights basis. You've got child victims that are unable to get, because of a criminal conspiracy, unable to get criminal justice against their rapists. Okay, is that a civil rights violation? Right, look at the crap that's went up that chain for civil rights violations. They just kind of, whatever the flavor of the day was, and not that some of those cases aren't serious. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
It doesn't get any more basic than that. And the other part is a RICO case. I mean, right now they could take what's in that report, charge everybody in the state of Pennsylvania that's involved in it, and it's a RICO case. I mean, it's evidence of a criminal conspiracy, and you can believe, and there's been other, and I'm sure once they start racking up these reports, there was one done in Philadelphia, there was one done in another, there's one going on just about in every major diocese in the country right now.
Shocking.
Put those cases together, and do your job, and I mean, and there's nothing. What takes more precedence than this? You know, some case that you have against a drug trafficker. You know, no. You know, this is the systematic annihilation of our children on a global level.
And religion. I mean, if we've got a criminal conspiracy in here where they acknowledge it's a crime, it's known to be a crime, it's obviously totally immoral, horrendous behavior, that they're handing out guidelines for how to do it, how to facilitate it, how to cover it up. It's one of the most absurd things imaginable. We've got people in the comments here on YouTube, John, saying that boys are targeted because they won't get pregnant.
More so. Well, and that seems to be a predilection, you know, with male, or these male pedophiles, anybody that gravitates in. But, and let me just, I'll digress a little bit. It's not really a digression, but next Wednesday, we had part one with a courageous whistleblower. Her name is Jessica Scanlon. We had her on. She was she is a survivor of an institution in Chicago called St. Joseph's Carondelet Child Center. Okay, this was an orphanage slash school slash asylum, and just like Boys Town in Nebraska, where the children were being trafficked, and she saw children that came out of Boys Town, and there's 2 Boys Towns. There's one in Indiana, one in Nebraska. Jessica is blowing the whistle on. Yeah, look at that building, Jason. Look at that building. You just went by it.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah, and I saw that, and I said, I know what happened in there. You know, I know. And Jessica, she's a 41-year-old mother of 2. She's a paramedic with one of the suburbs, and so we bonded instantly, you know, to emergency service workers. And Jessica wasn't sexually abused, but she was emotionally, physically abused by that institution, and experimented on, Jason. There was experiments going on these children.
What kind of experiments, John?
Well, that's a very good question. The guy's name is Dr. Bruce Perry. Very interesting CV on that guy. But he was a neuropsychiatrist that was supposedly trying to help these damaged children in this institution. Okay. They did, you wouldn't believe the screening procedures that Jessica had to go through. They brought her in from the public school system, and they weren't really raping. I don't think those children were being raped. They were raping the residential kids, the ones that were wards of the state, the ones that had nobody that was
protect them.
Yeah. But I think what they were doing to people like Jessica, and she's going to go into that in detail, they were basically grooming them. Oh God, she's, hold on for a second. Wait a minute, Jason. Just give me a second.
You froze up there, John.
Yeah, let me put you on hold for a second.
Sure. I'm showing everyone right now the Child Trauma Academy, and this was what returned when I searched for Dr. Bruce Perry. I think we've just lost John there. Let me see if I can get him back on Skype. Oh, he's calling me now. Oops, hang on a second, John. Oop, I think we've got him. John, have I got you back? No, missed it. Let's try him again. Anyway, this is what we got when we Googled Doctor.
Hi.
Okay, we've got you back.
You can thank my wife for that.
No, that's okay. No problem.
She's obviously not watching, so there's that.
No problem.
No, she's a little busy today, so she was just wondering if I was alive or dead.
That's a good thing for her to be wondering about. So, John, I was just showing everyone this website for the Child Trauma Academy, which I'm always very curious about these names. Like, Child Trauma Academy sounds like where you go to learn how to be traumatized.
Yeah, kind of like the Justice Department. You go there for justice, but I don't want to digress to. But let me, because we're on this guy, okay, Dr. Perry. He was on 60 Minutes with Oprah, touting this brain science that they're using to treat these traumatized children. Okay, he's supposedly an authority. Okay, let me just give you where he came from. Okay, because and anybody can go to Wikipedia and find this out. That's how I found it out.
Right.
Dr. Perry was married at 19 years old, and forgive me, I can't remember his wife's name, but you can see it on there. He got accepted to Amherst. She was in Stanford University, okay, in California, right? And I don't know if you know this, but I know this, and a lot of people know this. Stanford was a center for MK Ultra, for the LSD experiments. Wow. Okay, that was one of the universities that, that's what they were doing there. So, he's not a psychiatrist. He's going to Amherst not for psychiatry. Okay, 19 years old, Jason. She gets ritually murdered.
The wife?
In a church. 19-year-old, ritually murdered with an ice pick with a candle inserted in her in a church.
How do we know that?
Huh? It's in the read it. it's read the Wikipedia.
Whoa.
They it's not, I don't know if it's in his, but you'll see Bruce Perry wife, and you click on that, it brings up her name, and she was definitely murdered in 1974. Either it was on the campus of Stanford, but it was in a church. Those were the details of it. Wow. The guy who they were fingering for the crime, a security guard at Stanford.
Poor choice of words.
Committed suicide before he could be arrested and charged with the crime. Wow. Sounds a little bit fishy. 19 years old. Okay, so there's that. Then...
Wait, they were married in 1974 and she died in 1974?
Yes. Yeah. Kelly is digging down, and I mean, you just read it, and there's something wrong there. Okay, and so Mr. Perry at that time, he's in Amherst. He doesn't complete his 4-year degree. Okay, he drops out of Amherst. He reappears at the University of Northwestern. He's accepted into medical school without a bachelor's degree. That's in his Wikipedia.
Isn't Northwestern University in Chicago?
Yes, it is, where Carondelet Center is. Okay. He's accepted into Northwestern, into their medical school, graduates in no time flat as a doctor with a PhD also, and goes into residency at Chicago University as a neuropsychiatrist. And boom, 1988, he's experimenting on these children at the child center. Okay, they're doing, it sounds like mind control stuff, and we're going to get into it with Jessica, but just what she's been able to tell us so far, and we're doing this in parts. I mean, the screening that she had to go through to get in, and they brought her in. They told her mom, and she had a learning disability. Okay, that was it. All right. They targeted her, said, okay, well, we can send her to this facility. They're specialized one-on-one, blah, blah, blah. They bring her into this facility, Jason. Okay, this is a 12-year-old kid. And she's put in a class, and they don't even call it a class. It's like no school you've ever heard. They don't have books. They don't teach English, arithmetic. They don't. They have these weird things that they do.
Sounds like a Waldorf school.
I have no idea. I have no idea, but it sounded like no school I have ever heard of. But right off the bat, here's what happens. She's there 1 or 2 days. And they have these small classes, 7 or 8 children. One of the kids is so damaged and mentally damaged from abuse, he freaks out in the class. They have 2 big 6-foot guys come in and beat this kid down, put him in leather restraints, and this is documented. That those type of reports for this school they finally closed it down in 2005. And wow. It wasn't, they ignored this for a long time. The Catholic Church in Chicago and the corruption there allowed this to continue. But can you imagine, okay, say that's your daughter. My paper towel roll is failing here. Hold on.
It's okay, John. Martin DeBeer is reminding us that Northwestern University also has stocks of Novichok, the highly toxic chemical that was identified in the essentially assassination attempt of Mr. Skripal. Skripal, whatever that guy's name was.
I got to get this straight, Jason. Hold on. Give me a second here.
So that's interesting. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on there at...
yeah, and imagine your 12-year-old daughter, she's got a learning disability. You're a good Catholic. They're telling you, oh, we'll send her here as a great facility. They don't tell you that she's in a small class with children that are literally having to be sedated and bouncing off the walls and seriously, mentally disturbed because they've been raped, mostly because of that reason. It's just totally screwed, and we're just starting to get into this with her. And believe me, we're gonna go into it as far as we can. Wow. This is starting to aggravate me.
Now,
all right. Go ahead.
While we're talking, I just want to remind people that in addition to the Traffick Report Show, everyone who is interested in the topics that John is discussing with us can follow Fireman John on Twitter. You will find him there at Fireman John 628. And the things that Fireman John is looking into are critically important. We definitely want people to be following Fireman John and supporting the Traffick Report Show. John, some people in the YouTube chat are inquiring about the decor in the room there. I see you've got Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas and a Kiss poster. What can you say about that?
My wife collects, I've got Joey Ramone right here. Kelly collects antique toys. So that's what you're saying. This is never opened, Joey Ramone.
Nice.
Okay. So we share this room. This is like Kelly's display for some of her stuff. I've got Godzilla back there. That's my favorite.
And who's the Kiss fan?
And if you can see, I don't know if you can see, I'm gonna walk over there, Jason. Oh,
sure.
And I'm slacking terribly. I haven't sent you this T-shirt, but
oh no, that's okay.
There's the Ghosts of 9/11. That's Kelly's motorcycle vest. We both have motorcycle vests and jackets with that. That was the brainchild of a firefighter that was a helicopter pilot for Metro Dade.
Wow.
And he's this guy he's like a savant. I'm really digressing here. He's invented an artificial hip that will probably replace anything that's on the market now. But at any rate, he didn't have time to do this, so we were in contact with him. He was involved with architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and so we have all that stuff, and we're trying to do something with it constructive. It part of it is get Bud some of his money back because to make those patches and everything else but that's just we're just too busy to do that right now. But we're trying. I'm sending one to you personally.
No pressure
Joe
on
Napoli,
that, John.
Casey Whalen, and there's patches and a CD. It's great information. It's got all the architects and engineers information, but it'll be out there at some point whenever we get a little bit more manageable and stuff stops breaking down around here.
No pressure on that. I just wanted everybody to understand that you're involved with biker culture and you like rock and roll and movies and toys. So you've got the Ramones, you've got Nightmare Before Christmas, you've got Kiss back there. And I don't know why people were asking that, but you never know where these questions
we get it.
come from.
My wife's got there. I don't know if you can see him, but she's got a Pee Wee Herman doll and Ed Grimley. You remember who Ed Grimley is?
Yes, with the pointy haircut.
Yes, yeah. He's like in Pee Wee Herman's lap, and we do the show every week, and people's like, "Why are you?" Like it's some sort of dual meaning, some some message that we're.
But Pee Wee Herman never got in trouble for assaulting anyone. He was inside a porno theater doing something he shouldn't have been doing. Not
hold
that
on
that's,
for one second.
that's
I'm sorry,
great, but
I'm still on live, baby. All right, let me close the door.
Yeah.
This is live TV. Hold on.
Absolutely.
Just been that kind of day.
Yeah, don't worry about it at all, John.
Okay. All right. Nobody died.
No. So let's get back to the Archdiocese. Let's get back to the... I think it was
safer on a fire truck, tell you the truth, Jason. I really do.
Let's get back to the Archdiocese and the grand jury report. You've read most of it, and one of the most important things that we want to share with everyone today on this broadcast is the news that the Traffick Report Show is going to be doing somewhat of a marathon read of the report. And that's going to be starting this Sunday on YouTube. People can go to the Traffic Report Show. The link is in the description of this video. And John and his guests will read through the entire report. So if you haven't seen this report, if you haven't read it yourself, what time should people be tuning in there, John?
Well, and a lot of Catholics may be pissed off by this, but we're calling it Sunday Mass. And that's the name of the marathon. And it's starting at 6 a.m. And that's what we're going to be doing. There's some wonderful people, Tim Hotham and Tiffany. I think you had Tiffany on.
Tiffany Fitzhenry, right? She was on last night.
She's going to be helping us. John Paul Rice, he's a Hollywood director, made a child's voice. So there's
great
a lot.
People.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this network, and yourself included, is powerful, and that's what we're going to do. And I don't know what people believe, but the written word has its power, but the spoken word is even more powerful. So we're gonna read it out loud, very loud, and hopefully people will do the same. You might see Howie reading it aloud at some local church,
Wow.
and people should do that. I want to see. I believe, Jason, if every Catholic in the United States read this report, this whole system would come down. I mean, they would gut the infrastructure of the religion, which is all. It's not even necessary, really, and all these, the administration, they should be in jail right along. And who says they're not predators too? I mean, who's investigating
whoever wrote that document is kind of worse than the predator, because they're the ones that are enabling this. So, John, in the YouTube comments here, Breeze Lover, who I believe is a friend of yours, asking if you've heard of the Lavender Mafia inside the Vatican, a huge homosexual underground in the church.
Absolutely. It's rotten to the core, Jason.
I think it's important that we point out that homosexuality and pedophilia are definitely two distinct things. Adult men that engage in sex with other men, as long as it's consensual, are not predatory criminals. No. Someone who would attack a child, irrespective of the sex of that child, that's a whole different category.
Yeah, and this bothers gay people as much as it bothers anybody else.
Exactly.
I mean, and this divide and conquer bullshit that's, excuse my language, but that has been perpetrated on the population of the earth. They break people down into groups where they fight with one another. Right. And I'll tell you what is going on now. This group, they call themselves male attracted persons. they're trying to attach to the LGBT as
pedophiles, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And they say they don't offend. Okay, all right. Let's and that is a good point, and people need to understand that, this has nothing to do with, homosexuality. It doesn't. I mean, these are predators, and there there was 800 skeletons, okay, in Ireland behind an orphanage, okay. Those were mostly girls, okay.
Wow.
They were impregnating these kids, and they were killing the babies so they could keep it under wraps, and that's also documented.
That's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's not, but we do find in Jessica's case, in that environment, the boy, because this little boy that came up to her, after she'd been there for a while trying to get help, was saying, "You're lucky you're a girl,"
Yes, you told me that story.
Yeah, and proceeded to tell her that these two priests were raping him, excuse me, and then you got Dr. Perry, who he was a gatekeeper, okay? He tells her mother or the administration that, this kid was sexually abused, but they commonly accuse, the people that are taking care of them now. That's total horseshit, okay? Right. I'll just tell you. That doesn't, if people are being good to these kids, they don't accuse them of raping them, all right? It doesn't happen. So,
now, John, I don't know, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't know if you're familiar with Esoteric Ed and the Outer Light, the Outer Dark, the Daily Rabbit Hole. He did a video some time back that I found remarkable. He was talking about the Pope's audience hall and how it is designed to look like the head of a serpent. And I'm showing an image of that right now from the interior, where these two stained glass windows make up the eyes. We see the fangs here at the front of the audience hall and the head of the snake there. It's sort of unmistakable and quite remarkable. It even bears resemblance to a snake from the exterior. What is going on here, John? Has someone somehow infiltrated the Catholic Church, and are they assaulting? I mean, you spoke about
and Islam and Judaism. Okay, there's a sect in Judaism, and all these people. It goes back. It was something called Mystery Babylon religion, and it was from Sumeria before any of these religions existed. That's who it was infiltrated by, and they are, for lack of a better word, Luciferians, and they're really not even that. They're this group of people, and they've infiltrated all the major religions, okay, including Islam, and they believe they're gods at the top.
Wow.
Oh God, here we go. I'm going on low power mode, so
we'll wrap it up in just a few minutes here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I am really fascinated when I have different guests on from different walks of life with different areas of expertise and focuses of research, but somehow so many of the things that so many different people I speak to come together. A lot of people have seen the work that I've done with Quinn Michaels, and Quinn has discussed in great detail a secret society that he refers to as the 9-3 Society. They draw from the teachings of Aleister Crowley. He's spoken about the Process Church, how it combines aspects of all religion. And I wonder if that's done not so much because they like certain aspects of each religion, but sort of to bastardize each religion and to infiltrate.
Yeah, absolutely. They're and these people, and they call them, and they are. Some of them call themselves Luciferian, Satanists. They call them that. But this even predates that, Jason. If you probably the best resource, and nobody's going to do this, but it's all on YouTube. Bill Cooper, Hour of the Time, did all the research on this. He did I think it's about 26-hour programs about Mystery Babylon religion. How that starts is with the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, with the prehistoric man.
With the monolith.
That's how it starts, and it explains everything. It explains the symbolism. It explains why there's an obelisk, the Washington
obelisk,
Monument in D.C., why there's one in the City of London, and why there's one in the Vatican.
And New York City, the Millennium Hotel, right adjacent to the World Trade Center, is a monolith, an obelisk.
You know what that is, Jason? You know what that is? That's Osiris's penis.
Oh, sorry. I'm confusing the monolith with the obelisk. The obelisk, yes. There are several in New York City. There's Cleopatra's Needle. There's one that I just showed the other day over by Madison Square Park.
Yep. And it goes back to, some of the Egyptian religion in the story of Isis and Osiris. These, this is, that's where, and they've hijacked all religion, not just Roman Catholic. They've hijacked Islam and portions of Judaism, that have some really, abhorrent teaching that have nothing to do. When you see the rabbis and Jews against Zionism, I mean, those are the guys that are, hip to some of the stuff and that's going on in the manipulation of the Jewish religion. But that's what they do. I mean, they knew the power of religion, eons ago, before any of, before Judaism existed, before Christ, before all this time, and they just brought that control, forward, and also on Islam, the Masonic influences in Islam and the Catholic Church. My God, Knights of Malta, that's the Jesuits. That's our intelligence services, Knights of Malta.
Right. The other thing that I always consider is that prior to the invention of television and radio, really the most common place for people to congregate in large groups, I mean, we get the word congregation, is in a church or a synagogue or a mosque, a place of worship. So if you wanted to disseminate some sort of mass message, having this structure of a pope and cardinals and archdioceses and priests, that's how it sort of goes down the line and goes out to all the parishioners. And I think I've said this before, there seems to be some correlation with the diminishing power of religion as mass communication has grown. Radio, television, movies, the internet, etc. People seem less focused on religion now than they might have been hundreds of years ago. But it's an incredibly important topic that you are dealing with, John, and thank you. You are obviously an incredibly brave guy, not just in your career as a firefighter, but in your crusade as a social media warrior to combat these horrendous crimes against children. I want to remind people to follow you on Twitter at Fireman John 628. And of course, everyone should tune in to the Traffic Report Show on YouTube this Sunday, starting at 6 a.m., where John and his colleagues will be reading the entire grand jury report from the Pennsylvania Attorney General, talking about these really troubling crimes against children, crimes against religion, really crimes against humanity, and they are being perpetrated in the worst imaginable way. John, is there anything you'd like to leave us with before the phone battery dies?
Yeah, of course. Well, and I'm going to, I was talking to Jessica about your show, Jason, and you today, and I'm hoping we're trying to consolidate her information, and it's going to be, watch part one, come and watch the parts, and then I hope we see her, because she was at the source. I mean, and she has all this. It's documented. It's there. The strange case of Dr. Perry. We're just scratching the surface with that, and I hope she would
I believe I've
make a great
spoken
guest.
to her. Please apologize if I haven't followed up. It's so difficult for me. I mean, I don't want people ever to get the feeling that if I don't write back or if I'm unavailable that I'm not interested in their story. It's just so difficult for me to deal with all the incoming messages, all of the fake lawsuits, all of the just daily obligations of anyone's normal life, and of course, communicating with hundreds and even thousands of emails that are coming in. So please, because I know someone was talking to me about this, I can't remember if it was you or her or email or a phone call, but I've heard about that before, and I think people should definitely tune into the Traffic Report Show and watch that with great interest. I want to thank my guest, Fireman John. great friend
you,
of the
Jason.
show, brave hero, and he will be on the Traffic Report Show this Sunday. Everyone should tune into that. John, we'd love to have you back very soon, and with
Anytime.
Jessica.
And we keep threatening. We're going to do a 9/11 because you know that's I know that's one of your
it is.
You know, things that you really care about a lot. So
it's close to home. It was, you know, I lived through it. I have friends who were killed in the building, and it affects us all, even people who weren't there and don't realize that it changed the world, not in good ways.
No. So
John, thank you for everything
great
that you're
network
doing.
and great job, Jason. And I watch your work, you know, and
thank you.
you know, I know you're doing the right thing because the attacks, you know, that come, you know, that's how I know you do. And I just know from dealing with you. I mean, you've helped us at the drop of a hat and anything we're doing. And I thank you. And I think, you know, I send my crazy Celtic angels your way to watch over you and everybody that's doing this work, because it's difficult work. And I'm just, you know, I have a problem. I'm not brave. You know, my job as a firefighter that did more for me than I ever did for it. And you're just kind of chosen for that. And this is just what you're doing and what Jessica's doing and what Kelly does and Howie. I mean, we're all doing our part to stand up as human beings that give a shit about the world we live in and care about our children. And, you know, it's great, you know, and we're making progress. The ground is beginning to tremble.
Absolutely.
As
and
it
I
should,
believe
so.
you are going to turn that tremble into an earthquake, John.
Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping for a fissure to open up under the Vatican. That would make it really easy, and then we could just start over.
There are so many things that really need to change, and hopefully right now we'll look back on this time period as the turning point. So thank you, John.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everyone at the Traffic Report Show. I will speak to you soon. Best of luck with the show on Sunday. Have a great weekend. A happy Labor Day. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'll see everybody soon.
All right, Jason. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Almost
John.
over, honey.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Jason.